So when making layouts a couple years ago, we noticed that the market had a trend where they would want 3D models of the whole factory design rather than just a 2D sketch. And also because the people that we usually make the design for, they have no technical knowledge. So especially if you just see a bunch of lines, they don't understand what it is. And with a 3D model, they can actually just see it. So that's why we decided to start a pilot with planned layout design. So previously what we noticed, of course, was the machines are designed in 3D, and most of our designs for customers have some vertical element to it. For example, conveyors under angle, conveyors go over each other, and in 2D, of course, it's very difficult to calculate all of this accurately. And sometimes you would notice that on site you would have something that is basically going through another machine, and then you would need to redo a small size of the layout on site, which is very expensive. So when you have a 3D design of that, then you can of course make sure that everything well designed in the correct way, which makes sure that on site itself you have a lot less issues, which makes it more efficient. And the customer is also happy because the planning that we provide at the start of the installation is now usually the one that we also maintain, so that the delivery is on time. So during the quotation process, the customer is usually very pleased with the way things are going now, because the collaboration with the architect and anyone else who is doing things inside the building is running much more smoothly now, because we have a 3D model, so everyone can upload their 3D model to the same space, and then you can have what's called a clash meeting, for example, where the architect can move walls, we can adjust machine lines, and everyone can contribute their part to finalize a design before anyone is basically starting production, which means that you have a lot less mistakes in the execution of the project. We have some benefits because with some of the project, especially in the market with larger customers, we noticed that if you arrive with a 2D sketch of the layout and you're going up against some of the big boys who do everything in 3D, you're already behind from the get-go. And nowadays we don't have that issue anymore, because even if you use both a 2D sketch and a 3D model, the fact that you have a 3D model and the customer can see it is fine with them, and then you are taken much more seriously, even for larger customers where we would not usually reach the end of a tender, for example. And we're working on integrating the 3D layout with our CPQ software, which means that if you do make a 3D design, then you get benefits later down, because it would link to the quote. So meaning that instead of making a 2D design and then making the quote separately, you would now have a connected design to the quote, which means that if you change anything in the design, at least the technical specs of your quote are updated automatically. So the advantages of Virtual Factory for engineers is that you can actually see the whole project as engineered, and you can see it in detail, which means that you won't have simplified models where you can still, for example, have some collision, but everything is actually as it is going to be on site itself. So you can already very accurately calculate, for example, the space a person would need to walk through. You can actually imagine yourself, for example, being at an emergency stop button, and you can visualize everything you see, so you can place those buttons at the right locations and everything. Well, if you are facing the same challenges as a company, where you build larger projects and you're still using something like 2D, or you're doing, for example, the 3D design in CAD, you will probably notice that in 2D your customer doesn't really understand what you have created and they just trust you. And vice versa, if you use CAD to make it, then you have to keep a separate library for all your models with simplified versions, otherwise CAD won't be able to handle the size of it. So in that case, I would recommend to migrate the library you have with your detailed engineering models to 3DX and use that to create the layout for a customer. And then you would only need to use smaller connectors with simplified versions of it. And even in the future, that might not even be the case.